It will truly help us grow. So we've been in this series called High Resolution. And in this series, what we've been talking through is our values and what things are valuable to us, and setting our core values, talking through our personal core values as people, also our core values as a church. And what we've been talking about this doing is it helps us set a grid that we can push all of our decisions through. So it removes emotions, it removes impulses out of our decisions that we come up against, so we can push it through a grid of values that will help us make decisions that we're happy to live with. And growing up, I was a sports guy. I loved sports. I watched sports. I'd play pretty much any sport that anybody invited me to play. And I also loved movies. I loved to be inspired. I loved to be challenged and be a part of a story, a movie. And so naturally, I loved sports movies. And growing up, one of my favorite movies of all time was this movie right here, The Mighty Ducks. Has anybody seen this movie, The Mighty Ducks? I have it right here on VHS. If you young guns don't know what this is, just ask your parents or your grandparents. They'll give you a full explanation. If you haven't seen this movie, The Mighty Ducks, it's this inspiring story about this kind of underdog group of misfits that form a hockey team, and they go on and win the championship, and it's highly inspiring. It's one of those movies, and you watch it, when you get done, you just want to run through a wall. Have you ever seen a movie like that? You just feel so much a part of the story and inspired, you just want to run through a wall after you're done. This is this type of movie, and I remember seeing it for the first time. I was probably about 10 years old, and we rented it from Blockbuster, and what's that? Somebody on the front row said. We rented it from Blockbuster. I remember my parents left me home alone that night. I was probably 10 years old, and I put this movie in the VCR, and I remember watching it and just being so inspired by the story and being so just jacked up about what had happened. I remember getting up and just running around my living room in circles with my hands in the air because I felt like I was a part of the team. I felt like I was in the story, and I remember getting so jacked. I went to the table kind of in the middle of the living room, and I took a leap off of it and jumped into the couch and did a cannonball into the couch. And as soon as I hit the couch, I hear this big snap, and the couch broke. The main beam that supports the entire couch snapped right in half, formed kind of a V pattern almost touching the ground. And so in this moment, I kind of had two directions I could go. One, I could be a person of integrity and be honest and tell my parents what I did and live up to the consequences. Or I can hide it and avoid punishment for as long as possible. And being the kid that I was growing up in church, I naturally chose to hide it. And so I began to scheme in my head of how I could possibly get away with this. My first thought was go get the biggest pillows and blankets I could and stick them underneath there to try to prop that beam back up. And I figured, well, they might notice if those are gone when they go looking for them. So then I went to pots and pans. I'd get the biggest pot I could find and prop it up under there and get the beam back up to level. And it bought me a couple months before I inevitably was caught. But in that moment, I made a decision based on a value. And I could have valued two things. I could have valued being a person of integrity, be honest about what I did and accept the consequences, or I could value not getting in trouble and not getting caught. And this is the beauty of this series, is it helps us make decisions that we're happy to live with. Decisions that take the emotions out, take the impulses out. We can jump into them and know that we have this grid of core values, that everything I do goes through this grid. This is what will shape my life. This is what will define my life and help me moving forward to make decisions that I'm happy to live with. By the way, maybe you're here and you've made messes in your past. Maybe you made mistakes bigger than a broken couch. But you made decisions based on values that maybe didn't exist in your life. And you made bad calls and tough calls in certain seasons of life. And the purpose of this series is really to help us minimize our messes and minimize our mistakes that we make. And so we've been asking these 4 questions when it comes to talking through our personal core values. We've been asking this: what do I believe is right? What do I believe is most important? What am I unwilling to compromise? And what ignites my greatest passion? These 4 questions help us develop our personal core values. Now, as a church, we have 6 core values that way back before we ever had a church, ever hosted a service, ever had a logo or a website, we sat down and said, these core values are going to be what shapes our church, and every decision we make are going to go through these. And we've been talking through in this series, and they are alignment, involvement, multiplication, collaboration, adventure, and change. And the core value of change is what I want us to discuss through today. When I say the word change, what reaction does that pull out of you? What first hits your mind when I say that word change? Is it something that excites you? Is it something that stresses you out? Is it something that energizes you? You start to get pumped up about it? Or is it something you want to avoid or fight it? Or is it something you want to pursue and run towards? Change has a way of pulling out strong emotions out of us. Now, some of you, when I said that, the first word that came to your mind might have been hate. I hate change. I don't want to change. I want to do what I'm doing, and I want to move forward. I hate it. Let me prove to you for a second that you do not hate change. I want to prove to you that every single person in this room does not hate change. Now imagine with me, you wrap up at church today, you roll home, you pull into your driveway, and there's a brand new car in your driveway with a giant ribbon on top, giant bow, and someone gave you a brand new car, free and paid for, it's yours. How many know that's a pretty big change that you might be on board with? Now imagine you roll into your office tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., you roll into your office, your boss is sitting at your desk, slides a check across the table, $15,000 raise. That's a pretty big change. How many would be on board with that? Now imagine I sent the host through the aisles right now, and they passed the buckets, and they had little pills in the buckets, and you take a pill, and tomorrow morning when you wake up, you're 10 pounds lighter. How many know that's a pretty big change you might be on board with? We don't hate change, we just hate some of the things that come with change sometimes. And as we make our way through life, I think it's so important for us to have a fresh perspective on change. When you think about the world that we live in, it's changing by the second. Every single day, every single hour, every single minute, something is different. If you think back to 25 years ago, there was no internet. Can you imagine a world with no internet? And here we are in 2017. You could grab your phone right now and press send and FaceTime someone who's on the other side of the planet in a second in perfect HD crystal clear quality. Our world is changing by the second. And so it's so important for us to have a fresh perspective on change, and even beyond that, a fresh perspective on what the Bible says about change. So as we discuss this concept today, I want to put a picture up on the screen to kind of help kind of put us in a frame of mind. And so I want you to imagine your life. You're in an airplane, and you're looking down at your life, and you're kind of analyzing the change that you've been through, maybe the changes of the past, the changes you're currently going through, and maybe the changes of the future. And if you've ever been in an airplane, when you take off on the runway, things are flying by. It's 1,000,000 miles an hour. You fly right by something, you didn't even see what it was. Imagine getting up to 100 feet. You can kind of see a few things down there. You can see a couple things, but still flying by very fast. 1,000 feet, even less or so. Imagine getting a plane up to 10,000 feet. Something like this, where you can look down and get a broad view, get a wide view of the change. If we could walk through something together today, if we kind of imagine ourselves as we talk through this concept, let's tip the nose of our planes up today. Let's make it a goal to get up high in the air, as high we can, 10,000 feet, and really look down at our life and get a broad, wide view. Maybe the things we've gone through, the things that have shaped us, maybe some of the changes we've made, and some of the effects that we still deal with today. Maybe some of the changes we're going through now, and then look ahead to the changes of the future. I want to take us to a text today in the Bible. It's in 2 Corinthians chapter 4. So if you have your Bible with you, you can bust it open at this time. If not, there's an app called the YouVersion Bible app, if you haven't heard of it. Basically, it's a mobile phone app that has the entire Bible on it, as well as tons of resources and different things that you can use. And so I encourage you to download that. If not, it'll be on the screen. This is what it says. 2 Corinthians 4, 16 and 17. Though our bodies are dying, our spirits are being renewed every day. For our present troubles are small and won't last very long, yet they produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them and will last forever. A couple notes of context here on this passage of Scripture. 2 Corinthians was written by a guy named Paul. The Apostle Paul is what he goes by. He was one of Jesus' closest friends. He was one of the disciples, walked with him very closely. But Paul wasn't always the Paul that we see who wrote this. Paul is actually known to have one of the greatest 180 faith conversions of all time. He used to be named Saul, and by the way, his story is in Acts 9 if you want to read it on your own terms. It's a pretty crazy story. But basically, Saul was his name before, and he was known as a persecutor of Christians. So he would literally travel to the countryside and arrest Christians. He would get Christians in trouble. He would even kill Christians at times. And one day he was on the road to a city called Damascus, and he was knocked off his donkey. God spoke to him in an audible voice and said, "Saul, why are you persecuting me?" And as the story goes, he had scales over his eyes immediately, and he didn't eat, sleep, or drink for 3 days out of sheer shock of what had just happened. And through a series of events, Saul turns his life around, changes his name to Paul. Instead of going and persecuting Christian, he does a 180, and he goes and becomes one of the greatest missionaries of all time. And here we are thousands of years later, and we're reading from his writings. If there's ever an opinion we want to look at when it comes to change, it's Paul, the greatest 180 conversion of all time. The other piece of this is he's writing this to the Corinthian church. It's titled 2 Corinthians, but most Bible scholars will tell you that this is actually his 4th letter that he wrote to these guys. And also, he had visited 2 times before that. I think that's important for us to know that he has a relationship with these people. It's not as if he typed up a blog and just shot out the link to anybody who would get it on Facebook, or he wrote a book and sold it on Amazon for $9.99. These were people that he knew very well, he had a relationship with, and were very good friends. It's so important for us to look at that. And if I could summarize this text, if we could summarize it kind of in one quotable statement, this is how I would describe it. If we embrace the change, our result will be worth the pain. If we embrace the change, our result will be worth the pain. Think how interesting the dichotomy is if we can go back to that verse. The dichotomy we find in the top of this verse. He says, our bodies are dying, our spirits are being renewed every day. In other words, he's comparing our outward bodies to our inward bodies. Our outward bodies are passing away. They're dying. Every year we get more and more wrinkles. Every year we lose more hair. Our eyesight gets worse. Our metabolism changes. Our outward bodies are dying. And our inward bodies can be renewed every day. The interesting thing about our outward bodies dying, what Paul's encouraging us here, is that we're designed to do that. It's in our DNA. It's in our makeup. We're designed to live for a finite amount of time. And Paul's reminding us here, your outward bodies can pass away, but your inward bodies can be renewed every day. And so when we look at this idea of our inward bodies renewing, think of this as our spiritual self, our mental self, our emotional self. This is highly encouraging because this speaks to a concept that you may have heard of, the fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And what he's telling us here is that we can grow every single day. If you're not familiar with this, a fixed mindset says, who I am is who I am. I was born this way. This is my tendency. These are my weaknesses. These are my personality traits. Kind of take it or leave it. This is me. This is who I am. This is a fixed mindset. It says who I am who will be who I always am. A growth mindset says that every day I can get better. On the day that I'm on my deathbed is the day I stop growing. Every day I can improve. Every day I can evolve. Every day I can get better and be the person that God has created me to be. To me, this is highly encouraging because what this means is if we have a growth mindset and we renew ourselves daily, we can change and grow and not be locked into what we were in the past. Maybe not even locked into who we are now. Maybe you've made mistakes in the past. We don't have to be defined by our mistakes. We don't have to be defined by our failures. This is highly encouraging because we can grow, we can learn, we can develop, and become the person God created us to be. Check out the second half of this verse where it says, for our present troubles are small and won't last very long, yet they produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them and will last forever. And what Paul is saying here, he's encouraging us, if we want to seek growth, if we want to seek health, we may go through some pain. We may go through some troubles. And he speaks to a couple different kinds of pain here. The first is the pain of hardship. Notice how he doesn't say, you people over there, you might go through some tough things. You people over there might hit some troubles. You guys will be okay. No, he says nobody is immune to hardship. He says, for our present troubles, we all go through hardship. It doesn't matter where you've grown up. It doesn't matter if you were rich or poor. It doesn't matter if you grew up with 2 parents, 1 parent, 0 parents. It doesn't matter where you went to school, what kind of education you got. He's saying nobody is immune to hardship. We all go through pain. It just looks different for each of us. And then the next portion of the text says that our troubles are small and won't last very long, yet they produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them and will last forever. In other words, the pain that we go through will produce a result. Now, when he says that our troubles are small and won't last very long, is this Paul being insensitive? Is he saying, come on, whatever you're going through, it's not that bad? Is that what he's saying here? No, I think this is a relative term. What he's speaking to us here is that in comparison to eternity, our troubles that we're going through are small and won't last very long. Think about what we said about getting in the plane and tipping the nose of our plane up in the air. When you really get a broad view, when you really get a wide view of your life, things start to get smaller. And the seasons of change that you go through, the seasons of pain, they get smaller and smaller the higher that you go. And so this is what Paul is encouraging us with, that the pain that we go through will produce a result, being small and short. And he speaks to the pain of endurance here. Anybody who's ever been a competitive runner or ever trained for any sort of a race, a half marathon, a marathon, knows the pain of endurance. When you first start running, when you run 2 miles, it feels like you're going to die. The first time you ever ran 2 miles, you feel like you're going to die. But then the next time you can run 3 miles. And then the next time you can run 5. And then from there you can hit 7, and then 10, and then 13, 15, 20. Next thing you know, you can run a marathon. You didn't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to run a marathon today. I'm doing 26.1 miles. No, you don't do that. You got to it through the pain of endurance. And every day you pushed yourself to run further and to run longer and to run harder. And you developed a result out of it. You ran a marathon. The Bible says this in James 1, 3, and 4. Greg mentioned this a couple weeks ago in his previous message. It says, for you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you'll be perfect and complete, needing nothing. If we embrace the change, our result will be worth the pain. Now, this idea of viewing change and viewing the pain that we go through and change as a good thing is highly counterintuitive, because left to our own devices, we want to pursue the opposite of pain, which is comfort. On our own, we want to pursue all things comfort. I can't remember the last time I went to a restaurant and I didn't request a booth. That's just what I do. When I go to restaurants, I request a booth. Why is that? It's because it's more comfortable. I have plenty of leg room, plenty of space, plenty of arm room, plenty of room to lay out my food in front of me. Why? Because it's the more comfortable option. This is what we pursue naturally in and of ourselves. There's a brand called Lululemon. Has anybody heard of this brand called Lululemon? Lululemon has built an entire brand on comfort. They don't sell any other kind of clothes except the most comfortable, like sweat-wicking, climate-cool, dry-fit, whatever you want to call it, material that you put it on. It feels like you're wearing nothing. They've built an entire brand based on comfort. And left to our own devices, we don't pursue pain or look at pain as a good thing. That's completely unnatural. We look at the pain that we go through as tough, and we don't look at it as something that is beneficial and will help us. If we embrace the change, our result will be worth the pain. Anybody who's ever worked out, you know that you don't get anywhere when you work out without pain. Anybody who's worked out knows the value of pain. Now, I'm not a physiologist. I don't have a master's degree in physical science. But from what I'm told, what happens when we work out is our muscles break down. And deep down in like the microscopic level, little micro tears happen in our muscles. And these tears happen, and as we sleep and as we get rest and as we eat the right food, the tears slowly repair themselves and they heal themselves. And we do this over a long period of time, over many days in a row, many weeks in a row, many months in a row. That's how we get to this concept of gains, as they call it today, G-A-I-N-Z. And this is when our muscles get bigger. This is when our muscles grow. This is when our muscles become the strongest, when these little micro tears heal. And what's interesting about this is that the weight of our pain when we work out is directly proportioned to our result. And so the weight of pain you put on yourself will be directly proportioned to the result that you get. If you're looking to win the Arnold competition and you're looking to be the most jacked guy on the planet, you're probably going to do a lot of weight, you're going to do a lot of reps, and you're going to do it over a long period of time. But if you're someone that's just looking to be healthy, just have good, healthy muscle tone, you're going to probably do a little bit lighter weight, a little bit lighter reps, and a little bit less amount of time. The weight of the pain is directly proportional to the result. And this is the same way when it comes to change in our lives. The pain that we face when we're in change, the pain that we come up against, when we look at it in the right way and when we truly look at it in a healthy way and ask God to help us through it, it can create little micro tears in our muscles. Every time we go through it, we can get better. Just like Paul says, we can renew ourselves daily. Every time we go through it, we get a little bit stronger, a little bit better. Next time we can do a little bit more. This is the value of pain. And so pain equals results. If we embrace the change, our result will be worth the pain. Now let's look at this from a slightly different angle if we can here for just a second today. So if pain equals results, let's look at this backwards and then reverse engineer it. So if we look at results first and then let's work our way backwards to maybe what changes and what pain we need to go through. When it comes to results, we have to have a vision, a clear picture of where we're trying to get in life, what we're trying to do, what we feel God's led us to do with our lives. This result requires vision. And the reality is that we'll never embrace the pain of the change that we go through until we buy into the vision of the result. Let me say that again. We'll never embrace the pain of the change until we truly buy in to the vision of the result. When you think about the vision of the result, think about getting that plane high up in the air and looking ahead, looking at what's coming in your life. What are the big things coming up? Where would God lead me? What do I want to do? Where are my passions? Where are my strengths? Where are my desires? This vision for our lives, this result for our lives takes vision. We have to look forward and see where God's leading us. And so if we reverse engineer this thing backwards, this is what it looks like. So if you've ever done any sales of any kind, if you've ever done door-to-door sales in person or even over the phone, selling a product or a service, you know that in sales training 101, what they tell you on the first day, they tell you that you are the hardest person you will ever have to sell. You're the hardest person you'll ever have to sell. Why is that? It's because if you're not truly convinced in your heart that this product or service is absolutely the best possible thing for this person, for them to give their hard-earned money to you so that they can have this product or service, if you're not fully convinced of that, improving their lives, you'll never be able to sell to them. They say sales is a transfer of emotion. You'll never be able to transfer the emotion of the improvement of their lives unless you're truly sold on it. It's the same way with change. It's the same way with the pain that we go through. If we're not truly sold ourselves, if we're not truly bought in and say, this is where I'm going to go, this is why I'm going to get there, and this is what I need to do, we'll never embrace the pain, the change it takes to get there. And as we look at our lives from this broad view, I would ask you today, what's your vision? What's your preferred future look like when it comes to your life, looking ahead? What could be, what should be in your life, in your family, in your relationships? What's the result that you're looking for? And work your way backwards to the pain and the change you might need to go through. For example, your result might be to go to school and get a degree. And so you may say, I want to get a bachelor's degree or a master's, or I want to go to med school. This is my result. This is what I want to do with my life. This is what I feel like is best for me. This is where I want to grow. This is where I want to improve. So this is my result. So if I look at that as my result, I will go back and I will embrace the pain that it takes. I will embrace the change because 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, however many years of school is going to take is going to be hard work. And it's going to be painful. But why am I going to do it? It's because I'm bought into the result. Maybe for you, the result is a healthy financial future for your family. Maybe you're in a place where you feel like your line of work, your career, isn't going to really set your family up for success in the future. Maybe for you, it's looking back and embracing the pain of what it takes to start your own business. They say, when you start your own business, you can expect to not make money for 5 years. That's kind of the rule of thumb they use. Or maybe you look at the result and say, this is my result. This is where I'm going. This is where I know my life needs to go. And so I'm willing to embrace the pain of what it takes to get there. If we embrace the change, our result will be worth the pain. I'm just going to be honest with you today if I can. I'm personally going through this in my life right now. And many of you know, as I kind of step into this new role of helping spearhead this campus and taking what we have here and stamping it to the other side of the city, it's a completely new and uncomfortable thing for me. In fact, I did some math this week, For 262 Sundays, I've helped lead worship at one church. 262 times in the past 5.5 years. This is my first time ever giving any sort of sermon or message on Sunday. And so as I step into this new role, it's highly uncomfortable. Has me in a place of pain. To be honest, there's some days I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what decision to make and what to walk through. It's highly uncomfortable. And I brought this guitar up here to kind of represent the thing that brings me comfort. And I'll be honest, in my own kind of human, in my flesh, I want to just revert to the things that are comfortable. I just want to keep playing my guitar. I want to keep singing. I've been doing this since I was like 10 years old. I went and got a degree in music, and I've been doing it ever since I graduated and moved to Columbus 5.5 years ago. And on my own, left to myself, I just want to stand behind what's comfortable. You know what? I got a good thing going here. It's a decent way of life. I'm passionate about it. I love it, and I'll pursue it because it's what I've always been good at. And let me tell you why I'm not just ready for this next step. I'm super excited. I'm legitimately jacked about it, is because I buy into the vision. I buy into the result. And we start thinking about taking what we have here and stamping it in another part of the city where there's broken people. There's hurting people all over our city that might not drive 30 minutes to Gehenna. They might not drive 45 minutes to Gehenna, but they'll drive within 5 to 10 minutes of a church that we drop in proximity to them. And I can see it now. It's a family. It's a family that doesn't have a place to go to church. Maybe they've been through stuff. They're broken. They're hurting. Their family maybe is about to split up and they're about to just give up. But we drop a church within 5 to 10 minutes of them in proximity and give them a place to come to, when they roll on the parking lot, somebody invites them and they roll in the parking lot and they're welcomed with a smile before they even get out of their car. And they come into the lobby and they meet a bunch of people like you guys, and somebody shakes their hand and smiles and says, "Great to see you." Some people go their whole weeks without seeing somebody who's genuinely happy to see them. And they roll into the lobby and they get a hot cup of coffee that may or may not be good, depending on the day, depends when you catch it. And they roll into an auditorium like this. We don't know where it's going to be. It could be in a school, could be in a theater, a retail space. We have no clue. But the opportunity for them to be able to roll into a facility like this, to be pointed to Jesus Christ, to be pointed to hope and peace and strength and joy in Him through music and through message and creative expression. And maybe their kids get plugged into One Kids, and they're given a high level, energizing gospel presentation and be surrounded by people that want to help them and help them become better, and get plugged into a connect group and get plugged into a community of people that aren't perfect. We all go through stuff. We're all broken. We're all hurting at the core of us. But that we can link arms together with them and get inspired and look to Jesus Christ for all that we're going through and navigate through these tough things as we go through together. This is why we have to do it. It's because we're bought into the result of what's coming. We're bought into broken and disconnected people being able to experience the message of Christ, maybe for the first time, and maybe for the first time in a long time, but to be able to walk into a place where they can give their hurts, their habits, whatever's got them hung up, and give them to God, and be in a place where it's okay to not be okay, and they can learn and grow and do what Paul says, renew our spirits daily. This is why we have to do it. And this is why we can't hide behind what's comfortable. We can't hide behind the thing that brings us comfort. This is why we have to step out. And as a church, what we have here is pretty comfortable. We have a decent amount of people coming here on Sundays. We're starting to make friends. A lot of us know a lot of people. We're starting to build healthy relationships. And so it would be very easy for us to kick our feet up and rest on our laurels and just be happy with what we have here. This is why we have to step into the change. We have to step into the pain that might come from it because we're truly bought into the result. And we know that this is where God is leading us in our organization, reaching disconnected, hurt, and broken people. And so today, I don't know what this guitar represents for you. This guitar for me represents the thing I've logged a ton of hours in, the thing I've done a lot, the thing I've grown comfortable to do. I could probably put together a worship set in 5 minutes, but this message that I'm speaking to you today, I've been putting together for almost 3 months. And so for me, it represents something that brings comfort. It brings it brings me to a place where I feel like I can do what I can do in my own strength. And so I don't know what this guitar represents for you in your life. Maybe for you it's a job that you've been doing for years and you've gotten really good at it. You got thousands of hours logged in this job and you're kind of the go-to person. People look to you. Maybe you even gotten to a place where you've turned down promotions. You've turned down opportunities with other companies outside of yours because this is the comfortable option and you're able to make a decent wage and live a decent life for your family and get to a place where it's comfortable. Maybe for you, it's a relationship. Maybe it's a boyfriend or a girlfriend that you've kind of been going back to because it's comfortable and they know you and you know them. And so it's kind of easy to pursue that comfort that comes along with that. Yet it might be the thing that's holding you back from the change you know you need to make. Maybe for you, it's a parent or a relationship in your family where you kind of rely on this person. This person brings you comfort. Whenever we talk through this grid of core values, whenever you come up against a tough decision, instead of stepping into it yourself, you look to them and you lean on them and ask them to help you airlift you out of the situation. Maybe for you, it's something as practical as like a substance abuse. Maybe it's not like a hardcore drug, but maybe it's like caffeine, energy pills, or prescription pills. It's something that's been holding you back. You look to it to rely on it. You look to it to bring you your source of comfort. You look to it to help you, carry you through each day. And maybe it's the thing that's holding you back. Whatever it looks like for you, if we embrace the change, our result will be worth the pain. And a final thought today would be this: that what if we got to a place where we viewed change as good? We allowed change to develop a good taste in our mouths. When we're sold out to the result, we're sold out to the vision that we know needs to happen, we look at change as good. We develop a good taste in our mouths for change and then a bad taste in our mouths for complacency. Whenever we feel maybe kind of the dust settling around us, whenever we get comfortable in a season of life and something that we're doing in our family and our career, our relationships, we start to get a little bit itchy and we start to maybe look towards the future, get our planes up in the air and look towards the vision, what it looks like in our lives, buy into the vision. What if we got to a place we looked at change as good, beneficial, and we looked at complacency as something to avoid? If we embrace the change, our result will be worth the pain. What's your vision? Find your vision. Sell out to it. Go all in. I'm bought into this vision. Whatever happens, I'm on board with it. Based on my values, based on my grid that I set up for myself, I'm going to be on board with this vision. I know it needs to happen. I know this is what God is leading me to. I encourage you to think about that. Pray about that today. By the way, if you're here and faith is still something new to you, maybe you're still trying to figure out what you believe. Maybe you've never even prayed before. This would be an incredible first prayer. Say, God, what's your vision for my life? What do you put me on this earth to do? Like, what's my purpose? Like, what's my reason for being here? What's the potential that you put in me? Let's do this together. If we embrace the change, our result will be worth the pain. Let's pray.